We
Okay,
go
so
over the MO6, module 6, apply homework assignment for this week.
okay. Okay, so let me start with this one to see what is it. I want to review a little bit. So all of this, you have to manually check it out, right? You have to walk through this. So I think it's very simple for this one. Okay, so for this one, what do you think? Which statement produce a output for the following 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 here? Which one?
So the last one?
You make the same mistake here. I see. So the first thing, in order to know that how to generate the integer random number, you have the first step, you have to identify how many number you have. Right? So we look on this one, how many number you have?
5.
Why 5?
Oh, no, it's 6. 6
Yeah.
numbers.
So for this one, you have to.
Oh, right, 6.
Yeah,
Times 6.
it's this number and the starting number 5 here. So we have to work with this one. That is the most common mistake from you guys. So we think from the 5 to 10, you think that it's only the 5 number, but actually it's a 6 number here. Right? So that is the thing you always have to remember. So if you take the higher number, you minus the lower number, you always have to add 1 here. So we have 10, you minus 5, you have 5, you plus 1, you have 6. So for this one, you have 6 number and the starting number here, 5 here. Okay. Which one is not netted in for loop? You can do all, right? You can set in loop inside the loop here. I don't see any problem with this one. So what do you think about this one? Which one? Huh? If you look on this one, what is the output here?
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah, right. So we have to do everything in this one. You have this guy here, and you integer, you have 3, and plus 0.5, you have 3.5. Okay, for all of this one, you have to manually chase down, right? Or if you want, you can write in the Raptor. You can write in Raptor, and you can see what is the output here. Okay, the same with this one. What do you think? What should be the random function here?
The random parentheses 0
4.
times 4.
Yeah, you have a 4 number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got it. Okay, how about this one?
Sorry.
Random
6.
3.
Is it 6?
Yeah, 6. All right, so if you have an integer here, you have about the integer here. You have the random. You have the 6th number, right? And what else? What do you think?
-5.
What?
Oh.
3 plus 2.
Yes, right. So in order to generate the random, the first thing you have to identify how many number you have. The second one, you just identify what is starting number here. Right? So for this one, you have 6 number and starting number 2 here. That's all. That's the way you generate the random number. This one netted loop, right? So what do you think? If you have this number of what is the ceiling function? So what is the output here?
5.
Yeah, you draw it up, right? Remember that you draw it up here. Okay. Okay, so what do you think about this one? If you have number 6, right? And
The range starts at 3. The range ends at
what's the ending? What's the ending here?
is it? Is it 8?
Yeah, 8, right? Because from the 3 to 8, you take the 8, you minus 3, you have 5, plus 1, you have 6 here, right? So that's only 8. Yeah, that is I want to highlight you in the random function because you work a lot with the random function in the practice in the final exam in the project here. Okay. Okay, for the quiz.
Wait, I thought we already look at this one.
Oh, sorry. I think it is checkpoint, right?
Yeah, checkpoint.
Okay, here's the same. All right. So we have to write as the after program generate the random number in the range from the 1 to 10, and don't display the random number here. Don't display the random number here, and you allow the user to get it with 3 tries, right, for the random number, and display the hint. So if he gets something it's too high, you have to tell him that it's getting too high, and you have to tell him that how many remaining try you have. So after one fail guessing, you say that you have 2 remaining try, and after 2 guessing, you have to tell him that you have 1 remaining try, and if all the 3 attempt here, you have to tell him that you have no remaining try, you fail, something like that, right? So what do you think for this one? What do you have to do first? What are the output and what is input here?
The output, well, for the input is the guess, right?
Yes. So actually, for the output, you have the notification, right? So we can tell
notification.
Gas is too high, gas is too low. Actually, you have the 2 output here. You say that you guess too high, or you guess too low, or how many remaining try you have, right? Or you can have you get this correctly. And what's the input here?
The guess.
Yeah, the input is the random number, right? It's a guess, the random number and the guessing here. All right. So for this one, let me see. So for this one, what do you have to do? What do you think when working the after here? What is the first step you have to do? What's the first step you have to do?
Set the random number.
Yes. So the first step you have to generate the random number, right? The first one you have to generate the random here. You said you have random, and you assign for the random here. So what do you think if you want to generate the the random number integer here from 1 to 10, what should be?
Random times 11
Yes.
plus 1.
No, from 1 to 10, how many number you have?
Oh.
Hmm? From 1 to 10, how many number you have?
11.
10.
Hmm?
11.
Why 11?
Oh, wait, no.
10.
9.
Why 9? I said to you that you always make the mistake here for this one. That's why I want to. Okay, let me give you the example here. You think about you want to planting some of the tree, right? So you planting one tree here, you planting one another tree here, you plant another tree here, and you plant another tree here. So what do you think? If you look on this one, how many gap you have? You have 1, you have 2, you have 3 gap here, right? And you have 3 gap, but actually you have the 4 tree here. You have 4 tree here. So we see the number of tree here always greater than number of gap 1, right? So if you have one more tree here, the number of gap is 4, but you have the 5 tree here. That's the thing. The number of tree here always greater than the number of the gap is 1. So the same with the random number here. If you want to generate the random number from 1 to 10 here, so you take 10 minus 1, you have 9 gap here. I have 9 gap here, right? But actually, the number of the number you want to generate, you have to add 1 here. That's why you have to generate the 10 number here, right? So that's the thing. Whenever you have the range here, when you have the range, the number 1 here is a lower number, and number 2 here is a higher number. So actually, the number you want to generate is actually the number 2 minus number 1, and you always have to plot 1 here. That's the thing. If you want to generate everything from 1 to 10, so you take 10, you minus 1, and you have to add 1 here. Like it, right? So actually you need, for this one, you need the 10 number here. Okay. So now come back to the problem here. You have to generate the random the random integer number here from the 1 to 10. So what is the function you have to do? You have the random here is the number, or you put the number here, right?
Random times 10.
You have integer, right? So you have the floor here, right? You have floor, and you random. How many number you want to generate here?
10.
Yes, that's all right. You have the 10 here. Sorry, yeah, I had to. Now we have number here equal to floor.
10 plus 1.
Random times 10, right? And plus 1, because the 1 is starting number, right? That's all. That is the number. Now you already generate the number and you store it in the variable here. You store it in the variable number here. Now, what is the next step? What do you think? What is the next step here? What is the next step?
You'll give an output telling them to select a number, and then an input for their guess.
So this one, you have a 3 attempt, right? So you have to think that you have to maintain the loop here. You only have to maintain the loop here. So every time of the loop, you're asking the user to enter the number, right? Enter the number in the range from 1 to 10. You have to tell him that please enter the integer number from 1 to 10. And so you only have to generate the loop here. So every time he enters a number, you have to compare the number, the enter number with the number you generate here. You can say this one is number, and the user enters the number is, say you have the IK, right, or whatever it is. So every time you have to compare this number with the number random number here, and you see if it's correct, they are the same. If that exists the loop, right? So you write out that congratulations, you get it correctly. And what happened if it's not getting correctly? What happened here? Right?
You continue through the loop for 3 times.
Yeah, so again, you have to compare, right? You have to compare the IK with the number. If it's greater than, you say that you get it too high.
Oh.
And if less than, you say that you get it too low. And one more thing, you also have to tell him that how many attempts he have left. Right? So in order to tell him that how many attempts he has left, you have to maintain the counter here. Right? So we see, in order to do this one, you always, at the beginning, you always have to set the count here. At the beginning, you have to set the count number 1, right? So the condition to exit the loop here, what do you think? What is the condition to exit the loop?
The count is
3
greater
times.
than 3.
Yeah, the count is greater than 3.
Actually, you have to use a combination here.
Yeah.
You know that you have the one in the case that you able to exit the loop early on the last on the what is this on Thursday. I tell you on Thursday. I tell you what is it. Okay. So one of the thing you working with the netted loop or netted selection here, you're able to exit it loop early, and you see if you remember about this one, right? For this problem here, you giving the budget here, and you have the 2 conditions to exit the loop. The first one is when you buy more than the budget. The second one when you bought more than 10 items here. So do the same with this one. If you think about this problem here, you do the same with it with the random function here. So actually for this one, you have 2 conditions to exit the loop. What are they?
You either guess the number or you guess 3 times.
Yeah, right. So actually you have the two conditions to exit the loop here. So you have to use the OR function here when you have the x here equal to the random number, or when the count here, right? The count is the number of attempt here, right? The count greater than 3. So we exit it. Of course, when you exit it again, you have to check it again, right? So we have checked again. In the case he gets it correctly, you tell that congratulations, you get it correctly. And in the case that you only have the more than 3 attempts, you said that you only try only the attempt here. Sorry, something like that. Right? So in the case not guessing correctly and you still have the attempt here, you have to check, right? You have to check here if the x here greater than the number or not, right? So in the case that you have to print out that you're guessing too high, right? You're guessing too high, and you also have to tell him that how many attempts you have left for this one, right? And in the case that x is not greater than L here, sorry, not greater than number here, you tell that you're guessing too low, and you also have to tell him that how many attempts he have left. Okay, that's the case. That's the thing. Any question for this one? I don't want to work with Raptor for you because I want you to have to think about that and work by your own here, because from my observation that when I correct it on the homework, I see that some of you that copy exactly what I did and you just submit it here. It's not good for you. So for this one, any question? It's my suggestion to work with this one. Any question for this one? Let me know. Or if you want to work by your own, you can work by your own. And if you want me to give you some suggestion, you can share the screen and I give you some comment here.
I think I'm good for this one.
Okay. Any question from you guys for this one? Okay, you're good with this one, right? Okay. Now, if you are good with this one, I move to the next one to see what is the next one here. You have challenge 1, right? You have
So just looking at this, I'm guessing it kind of wants us to write like a simple sorting algorithm.
So say again, what is it?
The largest and smallest numbers, that sounds like it wants us to write some kind of sort of a sorting algorithm.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just saying it sounds like a sorting algorithm, but like it's only taking like the largest and smallest. Actually, this reminds me of a puzzle in a game that I have called TIS 100. It's a game by Zachtronics, and you're essentially entering assembly code into a fictional computer. And I remember one of the puzzles I kept getting hung up on involved, trying to write a program to do this exact thing, take a list of numbers and output the, the first to one outlet and the last to another one.
Okay, that's all. So we see that if you allow the user to enter for multiple user here, so to enter for multiple number here, right? Anyway, let me do it step by step here. The first one you have to working on the challenge number 1. Let's see what the challenge number 1 here. Okay, so business class in student in this class he had given 3 tests. It's now the end of the semester, and the class is to create the program, input each student test score and the output average score for each student. Okay, so if you look on this one, all right, you have to work on the problem solving on the 6.5. Let me see what's the 6.5 here. Okay, so basically you have a problem statement, right? You have the problem analysis, you have design, and you have code, and it's starting here. Okay, statement, what you have to identify, what you want to do. Now in the analysis, as I said, that you will have to figure out what are the output and what are the input for this one, and you also have to think about what is the variable you have to use and what the formula you have to use here, right? And you also have to think about the defensive technique here. Okay, so now think about this one. What do you think when working with the problem analysis here? What do you think for this one? What are the output and what are the input here? What are
the input is how many students you have and also their individual test scores.
Yes, so you have to tell how many students you have, right? And the individual score for each student, right? And you know that for each student you have the 3 score here, right? That are the input here. So what about the output? What are the output here? What are the output?
The output is the test average for every student, and then average.
I mean, I can already think of like like the algorithm the computer should use to process it, just given the input and the output. But I don't know if that would be like cheating or like giving spoilers or anything.
No, it's nothing cheating here. So actually for this one, let me go with this one here. So for this one, you have the first one is you have the output here, right? And the output, you know that the output should be the average of each student here, each student, right? That is the output. And for input, you know that input you have everything about the number of student, number of student and average. And the score and 3 score for each student here. Okay, so in order to do that, you have to maintain the netted loop here, right? The outer loop is the number of students here. So say you have the 20 students, you have everything to run from 1 to 20, and the inner loop is from 1 to 3 here, right? So for inner loop that you asking that please enter the enter the score, the first score, or you have the pre-enter the score, number 1 for the student number 1, something like that, and the score number 2 for student number 1, and the score number 3 for student number 3, so for student number 1, right? So when you've done everything with the one student here, you go back to the outer loop, you move to the next student. So now again, you please enter score number 1 for student number 2, and the score number 2 for student number 2, and the score 3 for student number 2, and keep it going on here, right? So now you already know that what are the output and what is input, and you need to do with the netted loop here. And think about the analysis. Analysis also, you also have to think about defensive technique here. Right? So for this one, you also have to make sure that when the user enters the number of students, you also have to verify that this is a positive integer number here, right? That's the first thing. And whenever the user enters the score here, you also have to verify that they are the positive integer number in the range from 100 to in the range from the 1 to the 100 here. Okay, you also have to think that. So in the analysis, you know everything about the output, input. You also have to working on the netted loop. You also have to use the defensive techniques here, and the last one, you also have to pick out the formula here. The formula is very simple, right? You know that average is average for each student will be the average of the 3 score here, score 1 plus score 2 plus score 3 here, and divide by 3 here. Okay. So that's everything about the analysis. And in the case of the planning, right? That is the first, everything here is the analysis, right? Step here is analysis. You also have to put everything in the Word document here. You have to verify what is the output, what is the input. You have to design a netted loop, and what is defensive technique here, and what is the formula here. Everything in the analysis here. Now we move to the planning. Planning, normally you have to do with a pseudocode or flowchart, but for me, you don't have to do that. Planning is something that you have. If you want to break it down into, in modular structure here, you have to working on the hierarchy chart, right? So we have the main module, and you break it down into sub module here. But for this one, it's very simple, so it's up to you. You don't have to break it down into the sub module. It's very simple. But if you want, you have to working with the hierarchy chart here. And the one of the the very important thing step in the planning is that you also have to figure out what is the testing scenario here, right? Scenario here. So in the testing scenario here, you also have to think about the walk through that here. So what happened if the user enter the correct incorrect format here? So instead of enter the number of students is in positive number here. So what happened if we enter the character or string here? You also have to wait to figure it out, right? And so you also have the very specific testing here. So we think about, I have the first student here with the scores of 50, 60, and 70, and I expect the average here is a 60, right? And the second student here, I have the 60, 70, and 80. I have the expected output is 70. So that is a testing scenario. All of them, you have to think it about that. You have to planning. You have to do it in the planning process here. Right? So the third step is that you do everything the coding. This one you just do it the router here. You do it the router here. And last one is testing. Testing here, you come back to the testing scenario here. What happened if I enter the incorrect format? And what happened if I enter the 50, 60, and 70 for the first student? If the average is 60 or not? What happened if I enter 60, 70, and 80 for the second student, if the output is 70 or not? So all of this is to make sure that the output is what you expected here. Okay, so remember that for this one, you have to break it down in the Word document here. You have to do everything with the analysis. You have to do everything with the planning. You do everything with the coding. Coding here is you do with the router. And the first one is testing. You have to verify that. You make sure that the output is what you expected here. Okay. Any question for this one?
Nope. Good.
Okay. So here's my instruction for this one, that you know that you have to maintain the two loop, right? The outer loop is the number of students here, and the inner loop is from 1 to 3 for 3 score here. And always think about trying to make the prompt, trying to make the output makes more meaningful here. So always try to tell the user that enter the score number 1, number 2, number 3, student number 1, number 2, number 3, and also on here, to make it more sense, to make it more meaningful for the user here. Okay. So that's all for this. The first one. Remember, but you have to submit 2 files for this one. The first one is the doc file, everything about analysis here, everything about planning. Planning, you can break it down into hierarchy chart for the modular structure, and you have to everything with the testing scenario here, and you have to submit the after for the coding, and the testing here. You also have to verify that the output is what I expected here. Okay. Now move to the second one, using the file and display the largest and smallest and the list number entered by user. The user should indicate she or he or she finished the enter number by entering the number 0 here, and use the dependency technique to make sure user enters the correct format here. All right. So so actually for this one, what do you have to do? What do you think? What you have to do for this one?
Well, I mean, the first thing that's coming to mind, again, this is reminding me of a puzzle in TIS 100, and it's got the same, it says the user should indicate that he or she has finished entering numbers by entering a 0. I mean, in the game that I'm playing, it's just a string of numbers. It says it's 0 terminated, but I think the first thing that I would personally do in the code is, you know, set up a condition to check if the input number is 0, and if it is, then quit the program.
Yes, right. That's the condition to exit the loop here, right? Because you see that it keep entering the number, right? It keep entering the number until you enter the number 0 here, right? So actually, the first step here, you also have to create the loop here, and the condition the loop, the first one here, the loop, right? You ask the user enter the number here, right? Enter the number.
Yeah,
and make sure that you also have to you have to use a dependency technique here to make sure he enters the correct format. That means you have to use the each number format here, right? To make sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the next step here, you check if the number equal to 0 or not, right? So if it's equal to 0, user exit it here, right? And user exit it here. And if it's not the number is not 0, right? It's not 0, you have to identify here which one is the largest one and which one is smallest one here. So in order to figure out which one is smallest one and which one is the largest one, what do you think? What we will do here?
This is kind of where I got stuck in the game that had the same problem, because like it's working with a very small instruction set. There's JEZ, JLZ, and JGZ commands, which are basically just jump to a line if the input number is, you know, greater than, less than, or equal to 0.
Okay.
So I mean, like that part's easy. I mean, like if I was playing that game, I'd start, you know, checking whether the number is greater than or, you know, less than 0. I think where I got hung up was like the iterations after that, because there's so many numbers, and like it's trying to find like there's going to be a number, like in one case, like say there's going to be a number, and then there's a number that's lower than that number, and then a number comes through that's higher than both of them. So that's kind of where I got hung up, like trying to get it to iterate in a way that would check those conditions.
Okay, I got your problem. So here's the thing. if I am the player here, if I keep enter the number here, right? So I have entered the number -6, 10, 14, and 3, and -8, and 5, something like that. And after that, I enter 0 here, and 0 is the exit loop, right? So what do you think? If you look on the list of the number I enter here, how can you identify which one is the largest one and which one is smallest one here? Think about the way computer do, right? By looking on this one, you instantly know that this one is highest here and this one is the largest, smallest here. But think about the computer. How can it identify which one is the largest one and which one is the smallest one here?
I'm just sort of throwing an idea out here. What I might do is create a least and greatest variable, and then like, I mean, I guess I'd initialize them both at 0 or something. So like, well, the thing is, you'd kind of have to check 2 numbers at once, but you're only entering in 1 number at a time.
Okay. So let me tell you how to do it. Right? So let me tell you how to do it. So in order to do that, you have the 2 variables here, right? You have 2 variables here. You have the variable is the largest one and smallest one here, right? You have the largest one and smallest one. You need.
We're still seeing the Chrome browser. If you're sharing the screen, I think I hear you writing things down, but we're just seeing the Chrome browser.
Yeah, I forgot it.
All right, there we go. That's the flow chart.
Okay.
So, I didn't get that. Could you try?
What is it?
We're seeing the flow chart now.
Why?
Like this is for like for the last problem we went over. So
yeah, here we go.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay. So if you look on the list of the number you enter, you instantly know this one is the largest, this one is smallest here, right? But you have to think about the computer point of view here. So in order to do that, you know that for this one, you have to print out the 2 output here. The first one is the largest one, and the second one is the smallest one, right? And the input is a lesser number here. Okay, so in order to do that, the first thing here, I asking the user enter the first number, right? I enter the first number here as a number -6 or whatever it is. Right? So when he enters the first number here, I just put the largest here equal to the first number here. Right? So for this one, I put it in -6 here, and the smallest one here. I also put it -6 here. So now, how can I do? When I move to the next one here, I move to the next one. I have to compare it. If I have to compare it, if the number here greater than the largest, I change it to the largest here. So now I have the largest here, number 10. I change it. I have this largest here, number 10, and I compare the smallest. If this one here less than smallest, I change it, but not. I keep the same.
So you see, first entry, you know, the first entry we're expecting to go into both the largest and smallest variable at the same time. Okay. Okay.
Yes, that's the first entry. You have to do that. The first entry is a good point. You have to do it on the first entry here. Okay. So now when I move to the 10, I will change it in largest here, number 10, and the smallest here is -6, right? So I move to the next one here. I compare again. This one here, 14 greater than the largest. I change it to 14 here, right? And smallest here, if greater than, I don't change anything. Now move to this one, 3 here, number 3 less than largest. I don't change anything. I keep it 14 here. And smallest here, the number here greater than, I don't change anything. Right? So move to the -5 here. What happened here? I have the largest here. I have largest here is 14. Right? Keep the same. It keeps the same. And this one less than smallest. I change it to smallest here. And move to this one. Keep the same 14 and keep the same here. And now you have 0 if exit here. So we see. At the end of the loop, I have the largest here is number 14, and I have smallest here number -8 here. You got my point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes. What's your question?
I thought they were wanting us to sort them, but I didn't have enough time to read it all the way through to sort all of them.
That's kind of my bad. That's like the first thing that came to mind for me. But no, it's just looking for the largest and smallest, which that's an easier task than
Yes.
writing a whole sorting dealie.
And so basically that's the way you do it. You think about the ways the computer do it. Right? So we just keep doing step by step, one by one, and keep comparing here. Right? So you see, actually for this one, you have the loop here. Right? You check the number equal to 0, exit loop. If not, you compare everything here. Right? So you have the selection here. If the largest, if the largest here, if the number, right? If the number here, so that means you move to the number here. Greater than the largest, you change the largest to the number. And if the smallest less than, the number less than smallest, you change smallest to the number here. That's the way you're working with this one. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would we sort those, or should we not worry about that yet?
Sorry, say again.
How would we sort every single number?
So you have the loop here, right? So you have the loop every time you enter the new number. So we think at the beginning you have -6 here. Now asking the user enter the new number, and if you enter the number 10, compare this one with the current largest here. So if this one, the number greater than the largest, so we have the number here. If you have number greater than the largest here, you just change the largest to the number here. Right, so you see now the largest at the beginning you have -6, right? And when you enter the number 10 greater than -6, so we change the largest now to 10 here, and keep doing it.
So this is sort of a starting point for a like a full sorting algorithm. Like I could imagine this, like if you want to change this code into something that would sort all the numbers, it just involve like having, you know, maybe some sort of larger memory of like all the numbers that are input, and then writing the output to a string or an array, that kind of.
So actually for this one, when you study on the chapter 7, you do the same with this one. You do the same when you have the array here. It's a good point. The difference, the difference between the variable and array is that you see that when you enter the number here, right? When it's the new number will override the old number, right? So actually you don't have it. You are not able to store everything about history of the number. But when working on its array here, you're able to store all of the number you enter, right? So we have the number -6, 10, 14, and 3, and -8 and 5 here. It store everything in the array here. And we will study the array on the chapter 7 here. Okay, so any other question for this one?
Nope.
No? Okay. So if you're good with this one, let me go to the another one here. You had the challenge 6. Okay, this one is a good one also. So basically, this one is quite the same with the one you're working with checkpoint here, right? The checkpoint here. So every time you have to generate the random number from the 1 to 13, but this one you have to generate it twice because you have the two player here, right? So you generated one for the play 1, and you generate one more time for play 2 here, right? So every time you generate 2 numbers here, you have to take action here. You have to take action. You compare them together, right? So if the 2 numbers are the same, you print out that. If the 2 numbers are the same, you don't do anything. But when you have the number of the player 1 greater than the number of player 2, you increase the counter of the number 1 to 1 here, right? And whenever the one is reaching the number 10 first, he is a winner, and you have to print out that this person is a winner here. You got it?
Yep.
Okay, so let me share the screen here so you see what is it. So what do you think for this one? You have to maintain the loop here, right? Also, you have to maintain the loop. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And what do you think? What is the condition to exit the loop? What is the condition to exit the loop here? What do you think? What's the condition to exit the loop? Let me open it here.
0.
No. Let me open it here. What happened? Okay, so let me open this one. Okay, so we look at this one here. What do you think? What is the condition to exit the loop here? Oh no.
Greater than 52.
What's the greater than 52? This one here. You are working on number 6 here. Okay, so now rate it. Okay, rate it and tell me.
If the score is equal to 10.
Okay, so what do you think?
When the score is equal to 10.
Yes. So
Or
whenever
one player scores 10.
the number with the count is reaching to the 10 here, it can be the number 1 or it can be number 2 here. So in order to do that, what do you think? What is the first step you have to do? What do you think? Any idea? What is the first step you have to do? You always have to maintain the count here, right? So you always have to set the count 1 here. It's for the number 1, you set the 0, and you have the count number 2 here. You also have to set 0, right? At the beginning here, and you have the loop here, and you have the loop here. Keep doing it. Keep generate the random number here. Right? So now, what do you think? What is the condition to exit the loop here? What's the condition to exit the loop?
If count 1 or count 2 equals 10.
Yes, that's all, right? So whenever we have the count number 1 equal to 10, you have all the count number 2 equal to 10 here, right? So now inside of this one, right, whenever you exit, whenever the count number 1 or the count number 2 is 10 here, equal to 10, you just exit the loop here. And when you exit the loop, how can you tell which one is the winner?
Whoever has 10.
Yes, again, you have to check it again, right? You have to check it again. If the count number 1 is the 10 here, count number 1 is the 10. You have to print out the number 1 is the winner, but not. You have the number 2 is the winner here, right? So now in the case that you have a count number 1 is not 10 and the count number 2 is not 10 yet, right? So we have to every time of iteration here, you have to generate the two random number, right? So you have the player 1, you have the player 1 or the number 1 here, number 1, and you have the number 2 here. Okay, so what do you think? What's the number 1? If you want to generate the random number from 1 to 13 here, what is it?
Floor random
14.
times 14. That's actually no, that's not.
Would it be times 13 plus
The times
1?
13 actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because from 1 to 13,
right,
you take
1 to
13,
13.
you minus 1 plus 1 here, right? So that's why you time 13 and plus 1 here, right? Because starting 1 is 1 here. Right, the same is just number 2 here. You just generate a random number from 1 to 13. So now you already have the 2 number, right? So next step is just compare them together. So if they are equal, right? You just do nothing. That you don't the equal, you don't do anything, right? You just go to the end and come back to the loop. And if they are not equal, you have the 2 here, right? So we have number 1 greater than number 2. So in the case greater than number 1 greater than number 2, what do you have to do? What do you have to do? If number 1 greater than number 2, what do you have to do?
Add 1 to count 1.
Yes, that's all, right? You add 1 to count 1, and if not, you just add 1 to the count 2, and you just come back and do it again. Check if it's 10 or not. 10, exit. If not, keep doing it. That's all. That is the case of this one. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So for this one, there's no any input from the user at all.
No, no input at all. It's a program generate the random number here. You have no input at all. Good question. Any other question for this one?
Yeah, I'm good now.
Okay. So if you're good, let me come to the project. Okay, so for this one, you have the 4 user, right? Yeah, report focus on set up the account for the multiple user. It will include the defensive program and error checking to ensure the program action like the ATM. Okay, so we have the 4 user here. Report update 7.4. Allow one that allow one of the above user at the time to log into the account. Complete the maximum 3. This one here, right? This one is important here. You allow him to complete the maximum of the 3 transactions only. Right? So in order to do that, you know that you have to maintain the count. Right? You have to maintain the count here, and at the beginning you have the count number 0. So whatever action it is, if he do everything with the deposit, increase by 1. If again he do anything to do with another action, you increase 1. And whenever he reaching the number 3 here, he says that whenever you are more than whenever the counter greater than 3, he says that you are done with you already have the 3 transaction already. You have no way to do it more, something like that. And so whenever here, and one more thing here, the first thing is you have to maintain the count with the 3 transaction. And in the case that if you want to verify the password, username and password here, right? You want to verify the username and password here. So whenever you only have the 3 attempts to enter the username and password. So if you already enter the username and password incorrectly for the 3 times, it will end a program here. Right? That's why you also have to maintain another counter here. So whenever you have the more than 3 attempts, it will exit the program here. Right? And allow the user to maximum 3 transactions at a time. After transaction, program will terminate. After the transaction is complete, the program will update the running balance with the git customer detail description here. And you have customer cannot overdraft the account. That you already did it on on the last week progress, right? So you cannot withdraw more than what you have. You cannot transfer more than what you have here. Okay. Do you have any question for this one?
No, that's what we're supposed to turn in this week, right?
Oh yeah. No, you don't have to. You don't have to turn in. You don't have to turn in this week. So for this one, you have to. You are supposed to work it on the weekly progressive on the weekly basic progressively, but you don't have to turn in on this week here.
Okay.
So basically for this one, next week we will study everything about the. You will study everything about the arrays and the pi, and we see that you have a way better when working with a multiple user here. So even that you have 100 user, you don't care about that. You working with the database, you go to the file, you read the file, and you store everything, username in the one array, you store the password in the one array, and checking account in the one array, and the saving account in the one array here. And after that, you just do the loop and compare every single element of the array together. So the next week, I will guide you how to working with the array and the file here. Okay, any other question for this? For this week homework, let me know. And if you need anything from me, let me know. But I cannot work it for you. So I just give the suggestion here. And if you want, you can work it right now on the class. And if you want my suggestion, if you want my comment, you can share the screen, and I can give you some suggestion, some comment here. Okay. Any question from you? Let me know. Hello.
I'm good as of now.
I'm good. I do have a question about the draw.io. So is there just two actors it would be, or it would be three, because the bank and the ATM and the customer?
So basically for this one, you don't have to very specify on any character here. User is the one common object here. So user can be the customer one, can be customer two, and can be customer three here. Right? So in the case of the drawing, don't ever specify to any single object here. You have to put it in the common here. I think about the banking. You think about the user is one object here. It can be any customer here.
Okay, but
okay.
As far as any customer, yeah, that's one actor. But
okay, so now when you come to the customer, you know that for every customer, he will have his username, he have the password, right? So when working the banking here, you have the first step whenever he log in the username and password. The first step, you have to check the username and password correct or not, right? So you have to do everything with the include or generalize connection here. Right? So when you enter the username and password here, you will access to the checking account and the saving account. He has the balance for the checking and saving account here. Right? So the next step he has to do with the selection here. He can do with the deposits. He can do with the withdraw, or he can do with the balance checking, and he can do with the transfer here. And remember one thing about in the case of the withdraw and in the case of transfer here, you only have to check to make sure that he cannot withdraw or he cannot transfer more than what he have here. Okay, any question from you guys? Let me know.
I'm good.
Okay, so remember that anytime if you need my help, you can send me the email, or you can or for today, you can ping me on the Zoom. So I will help you until the 1 p.m. here if you want.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. So if no question from you, I can end the recording here. And remember that anytime if you want help from me, just let me know.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Have a good one.